Those properties eventually, when the recession ended, appreciated pretty dramatically. That's kind of how we got started in a nutshell.
Paul, start with just sharing your story getting into real estate investing. What that looked like.
Yeah, so I was a sophomore at UGA in college, and my granddad, and by the way, my mom is in the chat, Laurie Myers, said this was her father, giving my mom a shout out. Her dad gave me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I read this book when I was a sophomore in college, and I decided for me, I was always going to invest in real estate for my personal form of retirement. That was just my asset of choice. And I stuck to that ever since. Graduated from college in 2007, so I'm 37 years old. My wife's 38. We got married at 22, she was 23. And I had a 13-year corporate career. I won't bore you with all the details, but the second of the 4 jobs I had, I worked for a staffing and recruiting company called MAU. And that company invested in me to get professional sales training through a company. It's an international company called Sandler Sales Training. You can go check them out. You can subscribe to their YouTube channel. They've got a lot of great content. But through that, I learned how to sell. And my wife and I kind of leapfrogged our careers one after the other. I was a branch manager making $40,000 a year. She was a medical school student making nothing, going into major debt. Eventually, when she graduated from medical school, we actually had $100,000 in student loans. Then she got a job as a pediatric resident for 3 years, making 45 to 50. And then I took that role in sales, and I had the opportunity to earn commission on top of the salary. And then, she got out of residency and started making money as a part-time pediatrician. And then again, we kind of leapfrog careers, and little by little, we finally got into the last 6 or 7 years of our 13-year career where we both started making 6 figures. And that was huge because while I was in college, I did a Crown Financial Bible study by guys named Larry Burkett and Ron Blue. And I just learned about budgeting, and I started living on a budget. And then once we got married, we both started living on a budget. And it was really simple. It was just an Excel. And then now we use Dave Ramsey's Every Dollar software, which I love. It's wonderful. So that's kind of how we got started. Then I started really I bought my first rental in October of 2007, right after I had moved back to Augusta and we got married. And ultimately I read this book, actually, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. And in that book, you guys can write this down for when you purchase the book later, but page 222, he talks about the acquisition model of the millionaire real estate investor. And he says in it, he identifies what is the best path, kind of the highest and best use for real estate. And if you're just looking to generate cash, it's buying and flipping homes. But if you're looking to create cash flow and equity, it's buying and holding rentals. So when I read that, and I had a mentor who owned over 100 homes, and he basically told me, you need to just be a buy and hold landlord, because that's where you'll really build wealth. And I was 22. I didn't know anything. All I had was book knowledge at that point. So I said, why not? Lucky for me, 2009 hit, right? The recession set in, and I just started buying 1 to 2 rentals a year and using, again, I was kind of like the textbook buy and hold investor. I bought B-class working class homes, 3-bedroom, 2-bath brick ranches in fairly nice areas. I was buying them for 75 to 100 grand. Today they're worth 200 grand. And I cash flowed the down payments. My wife and I lived off one salary. We saved, over this 13 years, we saved about 53% of our income. So we were living off very little, $3,000 to $4,000 a month, investing the rest. I eventually paid off all our student loans, and I self-managed and self-leased all my rentals for the first 10 years. And that was a great learning experience for me to understand how leasing and property management work. But it wasn't long before we had a few handfuls of rentals that were all generating $100, $200, $300, $400 a month in cash flow. And those properties eventually, when the recession ended, 2013, 2014, those properties over the next 5, 7, 10, or 8 years appreciated pretty dramatically. And so that's kind of how we got started in a nutshell.